And just allow yourself to notice where your awareness is. Your body's here in this beautiful sacred garden. But where is your awareness? Where is your attention? If you're like most of us, you'll find that the minute you think you know where it is, it's changed. It keeps moving around. Maybe it's listening to something, you're hearing some noise. Maybe it's feeling something. Some feeling of the grass under you or an itch. The wind. Maybe it's the mind thinking about something. Maybe you're remembering something that happened earlier or thinking about something that's going to happen. And chances are it just keeps bouncing around from all of these places, sort of on its own accord. Just notice that. Just allow yourself to become aware of where is your awareness. And then once you've got some clarity on that, once you've got the ability to be aware that you are aware, and to be aware of what it is you are focused on, then very consciously and deliberately take that awareness, take that attention, and pull it inward. Just gently unhook it from those things where it's hooked in. I'm a visual person. I like to actually picture myself unhooking it from the sounds in the world or from the constant movement of my own mind. You just unhook that awareness and then bring it within yourself. Not into the mind, but deep. Bring that awareness as deeply within yourself as you can. The mind will start up, don't worry. It'll say, I don't see anything, there's nothing here, or, oh, this is what it's like. Don't let it hijack the awareness. Just keep drawing that awareness back inside. An easy place to re-hook the awareness is the breath. So just allow that awareness to hook into the breath. So as you breathe, can you be fully aware of each inhalation and exhalation? Not judging it, not trying to change it, but just being fully immersed in it. And you may notice that there's aspects of the breath you can draw the awareness easily to. maybe the rise and fall of your chest or your diaphragm. But try to get a bit more subtle. Can you become aware of the breath as it just begins to enter your nose? And can you follow it as it moves through your physical and energetic bodies? And as you inhale, allow yourself to be aware not only of the experience of breathing, but of the fact that what is coming into you is not just oxygen, but it's pran, it's sacred life force. It's energy. And that energy, that prana you're breathing in here, is the energy of sages and saints, rishis, mystics, yogis. It's that same energy, that same prana that's been breathed here in this land since the dawn of time. Be aware as it comes into your physical body and into the energetic body, what we call the pranamaya kosha. Can you feel it energetically? Not just oxygen or air, but can you feel the vibration of sacred life force? Can you feel it filling every cell of your being? Allow the awareness to get really subtle. If the mind wanders, just bring it back, don't worry. Just bring it back to the breath. And if you notice that there's any type of thoughts that keep arising, a fear, an anger, a grudge, an expectation, a concern, a responsibility, as you exhale, just exhale them back out into the universe. Just send them back out to the universe. And let yourself drop deeper and deeper into your true self. slowly and gently bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open your eyes. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with you all. So starting as always with a question that's come in from our family joining us from all over the world, online through the internet. And then we'll open it up to any questions that any of you here might have. What is your morning to night routine? From Priyanka Ashok. My morning to night routine. Well, I would say it's rooted in flexibility. You know, Pujya Swamiji always says that yoga makes us not only flexible in the body, but it makes us flexible in life. And on a personal level, given just how my days change in terms of traveling and different places I'm moving and going and where I am and what's on my plate, if I tried to stick to one morning to night routine, I'd have to carry a steel box with me everywhere I went and just essentially live in my own box. And it could be moved from place to place, but I would only be able to exist in my box. But I'll tell you what it looks like when I'm here, and then I'll tell you how it tends to change, what changes, what doesn't change as I move. So I get up early. Because it's good for sadhana. It's what we're taught when we first begin our sadhana. But also I love it. I just find the mornings to be a really sacred time, a time full of really beautiful energy. And if you're not someone who gets up early, I would really recommend trying it. It's not that you can't meditate in the evening or the afternoon. Of course you can. But A, you'll notice that your meditation is a lot deeper. But B, I think you'll also notice just a different energy in your being that's there in the early morning hours. There's a reason that for thousands and thousands of years, probably from the beginning, the mystics and the sages of every religion all over the world have gotten up early. So I get up early. I do my own spiritual practice, my own sadhana, so my own meditation, my own pranayam. And I then like to go for a walk. It's hard some seasons, but like this season is just perfect. It's perfect for an early morning walk. So, shortly after sunrise, because I happen to like being outside when it's light rather than dark. So shortly after sunrise, I'll go out for a walk. And it's something I try to do when I'm abroad as well. Kind of wherever I am, I'll try to go out for a morning walk if that's possible. I find it's really energizing. But it also, if you happen to be traveling, it's really good on just a physiological, neurological level of grounding you and setting that circadian rhythm. They say to see the sun as close to sunrise as you can, to be in it as close to sunrise as you can, is really good on a physical level, on a circadian rhythm level. So in addition to just the spiritual beauty of being out and in the morning on a walk. It's also, if you travel, it's a great way to reset yourself. Come back. And that's when my seva begins. And then I'm engaged in seva all day. Seva's service, of course, and different types. And what I do in seva varies hugely. It could be giving satsang. It could be giving a specific lecture at a specific place. Yesterday I was up in Dehradun giving a talk at the Uttaranchal University to all the students there. So it could be something like that. It could be meeting with people individually regarding their spiritual or their psychological issues. It could be having team meetings with our teams about different projects that we run for free education or women's empowerment or water, menstrual hygiene, environmental protection, healthcare. I mean, it could be just a logistic, like, okay, team meeting. It could be writing something new, working on something. I'm in the midst of a book deadline that I'm late on, but that's taking up as many hours as I'm able to give it, which unfortunately is not as many as I'd like, but it's taking up some seva hours these days. And it could be something that we think of as really mundane, of helping compile reports for things that the government of India requires of nonprofit organizations. What are we doing? Who are we doing it for? Etc., etc. It could be any one of so many different things. But for me, the key point, my key guiding principle, is not what I do, but what does the moment want. So I've shared some of the things I do, but if you followed me around for a week, you'd realize, oh my God, it's actually so much more, and this, and that. It's all about what does the moment require. Let's say we're having a free medical camp here at the ashram. And let's say that somebody saw an advertisement in the paper and they've spent the last 2 or 3 days traveling from some village, bringing their mom for the free medical camp. And they've traveled by bullock cart and walking and rickshaw. And they get here and they haven't had a meal or a shower in days. And let's say that the time they arrive, maybe there's no one in the reception, maybe they get kind of, turned around directionally, and maybe they wander right into my office. For me to say to them, oh, I'm a spiritual teacher, sit down, let me teach you something, would be inappropriate, bordering on criminal. The guy needs a hot meal. He needs a shower, he needs a nap. He needs to know that his mom can get registered for the medical camp that he's just spent 2 or 3 days traveling to get here for. After all of that, then maybe you say, hey, by the way, we have this beautiful Ganga Arati, we have heaven, we have satsang. But you've got to see what the moment is requiring. And many times what someone needs, much more than a spiritual teaching, is a hot meal. Or to know that, yes, we'll take their child in our free school. Or people of different schools. I had a woman come just last week, the principal of another school, who wants us to adopt that school. Well, again, for me to sit her down and say, let's talk about that later, but for right now, let's talk about the fact that actually that's all an illusion. who we are is just soul. Yeah, I know you've got 300 kids showing up every day and you've run out of money, but that's actually all an illusion, and we're just soul and spirit and consciousness. It's true, but it's not what the moment needs. And so for me, on a personal level, my aim and objective in my seva is always to ask first, what does the moment need? Rather than what do I do? And am I able to step up to what the moment needs? And sometimes no. Sometimes it's got to be, let me call the guy you need. But then that's what they need. It's for you to get them in touch with the person they need. And so, in any case, the seva takes a whole variety of different forms. Typically, it's some form of teaching, some form of sharing verbally, in writing, in a bunch of different ways, making videos that go online for people who can't be here. So many different things. But it's really important to me on a spiritual practice level to never get stuck, to never get my identity wrapped around, that's what I do and that's not what I do. So that whenever the moment requires something of me, I'm able to respond. And of course, through that, we have our beautiful morning fire ceremony that I go to. Of our sacred evening arati that I go to. We have this beautiful satsang that I get to come to. So the day is filled with seva and these other activities, and then some more seva after this. And I have breakfast at some point. I have breakfast usually around 9:30, 10 or so. I don't eat lunch. I have dinner around 4:30 or 5 before the arati. It's kind of a dinner lunch. But I do it so that I don't have to worry about dinner in the evening. And then after satsang, I do seva, see my mom, and do some meditation, prayers, again, before I sleep in the night. And at some point in the day also, I try to bring in a practice of yoga asana. I do yoga asana practice. In the summertime, I can do it first thing in the morning around the time of my meditation and pranayama. But I like to actually wait till my body's a little bit more warmed up in the day. So sometime kind of midday, I'll try to carve out an hour or so to do some, 45 minutes maybe, but to do some asana practice. So that's what my daily schedule looks like. And when I travel, the morning piece stays the same, including the walk if possible. The evening part stays the same. Of course, there's no havan or arati, and the satsang is usually in a different form, in a different place, maybe a different time. But again, it's really all about stepping into what does the moment need. And so if I'm at the United Nations, for example, it's going to be a completely different day and a completely different thing required of me than if I'm having the blessing of leading a spiritual retreat or being on spiritual retreat. So those are the variations, but I think you've got the idea. So I'll end that and open it up to any questions anyone else has. Yeah.
Hi, Sadhviji. I first heard you speak in Joshua Tree at Bhakti Fest last month and came here. My question, non-attachment is a spiritual path, and so is learning to acknowledge and work with the pain and suffering that's present in our world.
Yeah.
So how can we practice non-attachment while also not rejecting or avoiding the pain and struggle in our world and within ourselves?
Great. Could you hear him in the back? Everybody got him? Great. Non-attachment is tragically and drastically misunderstood. It's a question that arises in different forms, different sub-questions, on nearly a regular basis, because it's so misunderstood. We want to have these spiritual virtues. We want to do what we're told we should do, have non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean thou shalt not care. It doesn't mean thou shalt be indifferent. And if you doubt that, look in any religion at the most enlightened masters. Were they callous and uncaring? Were they indifferent? Are there any mystics, sages, yogis, prophets, avatars, gurus of any religion, alive today, not alive today, alive thousands of years ago, alive a few decades ago, anyone you can think of, about whom you would say, oh yeah, God, they were just an embodiment of total detachment and disconnection. Even the ones who were the teachers of the lineage of Advaita Vedanta, which is really kind of the lineage that gives us these teachings around it is all an illusion, everything is just God, there is nothing but God, detached from it all. Even those, you look at even masters like Raman Maharishi, for example. I wasn't fortunate enough to actually meet him. I was not here in India at that time. I was off by a few decades, more than a few decades. But from all of what you read, even he, who just sat nearly silently, he was an ocean of compassion, of love, of caring. The stories that you read about how he was with disciples, how he was with others. And to me, when I think back of, gurus, avatars, mystics, prophets, whatever, he's the one who I think probably would best embody that you're talking about. But even he wasn't disconnected. He was fully there, in love, in compassion, in presence. And then you look at so many of the others. These are the ones who are giving their shirts off their back. I've seen it with my own eyes. Shirts off their back, the food off their plate. Everything. They are the ones who are living and breathing. If you look at any of our religious lineages, spiritual lineages in India, and from what I know, this is true all over the world. Religious organizations headed by religious leaders, founded by religious leaders, are the ones that are building schools, building hospitals, feeding the poor. They're not giving messages of how to walk by homeless people without caring. They're not giving messages of how to walk by sick, hungry people without caring. They're giving messages of how to start feeding people, how to build hospitals, how to build schools. Detachment is detachment from a few critical things. Number one, detachment from the fruits of your labor. This is core Bhagavad Gita 101. So Bhagavan Krishna says, you do your best, you do it sincerely, but do not be attached to the outcome. Why? Because if you are, you're going to be miserable. He's just offering you a suggestion. It's not some canon that has no meaning behind it. It's that the fruits of what you do are not in your hands. Your actions are in your hands. I can do a rain dance, but whether it actually rains is not in my hands. I can be the best worker in the world, but whether you appreciate it and give me a raise, not in my hands. So if I'm attached to the fruits of my actions, when it goes my way, I'll be happy. Doesn't go my way, I'm miserable. So detachment from that so that you can stay anchored and balanced and peaceful and happy. Detachment from anything that happens in the external world, whether it's a reaction to something you've done, whether it's an outcome of something you've done, or anything at all. Why? Because again, you are miserable. If you are attached to other people's actions, how they speak, how they treat you, how they live, how they dress, what they do, we're miserable. If you go around any room and you say, all right, we're going to go around and we're all going to say, the biggest cause of unhappiness in my life, way over 50%, and in some cases 100% of the answers you get are based on what someone else is doing, how my husband or wife is, how my mom or dad is, how my in-laws are, how my boss is, or something equally out of our control, how the stock market is, how the weather is, how interest rates are, how the traffic is. So the teaching is your inner environment, what we call the swastiti. Stiti is situation. Swa is self. So swastiti is my personal inner situation. My swastiti should not be dependent on parastiti, the situation around. If my internal situation is dependent upon the situation around, I'm going to go up and down as the stock market does, as interest rates do, as people around me do. It's the exact opposite of being spiritually grounded and anchored, awake. So that's the detachment. It's not about lack of caring. It's not about lack of connection. We absolutely should care. But I'll tell you a personal story about that. So after I'd been in India, a very short period of time, Pujya Swamiji one day said to me, do you want to come see these 10 schools? I've been approached by the man who runs a trust. And the trust runs 10 schools in a big slum area. Problem is they don't have any more money, and they've come to us to see whether we would take over sponsorship of these 10 schools. I'm going to go see them. Do you want to come? I said, yeah, absolutely. So we spend the day going from slum to slum to slum. And it's what you see in the movies. For me, I'd only seen it in the movies. It's the worst, abject poverty that you can imagine. People with nothing. And in the middle of this nothing, in 10 different slum areas, is some form of something they call a school. And in some of the places it was just some wooden boards covered with a piece of tarpaulin or covered with a piece of tin. No flooring, no nothing. No electricity, in many cases no roof. But in every one of these places, God, it makes me cry 27 years later. In every one of these places, the children's shoes. Now, you're in a slum. They don't have nice shoes. They've got little plastic, torn, broken shoes. But the shoes are lined up outside because to them this is a temple. To me it looks like a shack, barely a half a shack. But to them it's a temple. So we go all day to 10 different of these places. And we get back in the evening, and I'm sobbing. And it's dinner time, and he says, have dinner. And I'm sobbing. I say, how can I eat? I can't eat. My God, these kids, I can't eat. And he looks at me in that way that only a guru can, with that extraordinary and indescribable mix of pure compassion, pure love, pure understanding, and that knife that just cuts through all the drama, all the nonsense, all that which isn't true. And he looks at me and he says, are your tears helping them? No, but oh my God, those kids, I can't eat. I mean, I'm really sobbing. And he says to me, your tears are only helping yourself. He said, then you feel like a really compassionate person. He said, your tears aren't helping them. He said, if you really want to help them, eat your dinner, go to sleep early, and get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning and figure out how you're going to raise enough money to sponsor these 10 schools. And I share that story with you because when we speak about detachment, well, I've got to detach from my drama in it. I've got to detach from the drama that happens in me when I see the news, read the news, oh my God, oh my God. The drama that leads us to write beautiful posts on Facebook that get lots and lots and lots of likes and shares, but they're not impacting anything. Terrorists are not reading my Facebook page. Heads of state are not reading my Facebook page and going, oh really? Huh, all right. I guess I'll make a different decision. It's being read by people who already, in most cases, think the same way I do. And I'm not saying don't share. It's good to generate this oneness and awareness. But most of us get so caught up in the drama of ourselves in what's going on that we're not actually able to be of any use to what's actually going on. If I had stayed up all night sobbing, I would have felt still good about myself. Maybe I would have, there wasn't social media at that time, but if there were today, I would have written a post on social media about, oh my God, the abject poverty. But really what I needed to do was figure out how to raise the money. And in the same way, the detachment that we need is a detachment from the drama so that we actually can be efficient and effective, clear channels of the divine flow here on earth. So don't disconnect. Don't become indifferent or uncaring. But recognize that your inner sthiti should not be dependent on it. Because A, it's not good for you spiritually, but B, it actually renders you a really ineffective and inefficient tool. If I'm so stressed out about these kids being poor, how am I going to help them? If I'm so stressed out about what's going on somewhere, how am I going to be of any use? What we need is intelligent action, focused, concentrated, well thought through action. But in order to have that, we need a detachment from my emotional attachment to that over which I have no control. Does that make sense? Good. Wonderful. Other questions? Any questions? Yes.
Pranam Sadhviji. My question is a general one. Can the cremation of dead bodies near the river ghats be
Can the
stopped?
cremation of dead bodies,
Near the river ghats,
uh-huh.
can it be stopped so that we can stop the pollution
Ah.
in the rivers?
Can the cremation of dead bodies be stopped so that the pollution can stop? So, there's a lot of levels to this, and I'll try to quickly address as many of them as I can. First of all, on a purely practical and environmental level, as far as I know, and I am far from an expert on this, the way that they do cremations, in which the body is wrapped only in a very, very pure, unbleached cotton. They don't burn people in silk saris. They don't burn people in synthetic clothes. The body is traditionally wrapped only in a brand new, unbleached, pure piece of unprocessed cotton. Pure ghee is poured all over the body, and the body is traditionally burned on the wood of sandalwood. The typical wood that is used for cremations is sandalwood. From what I know, that body itself, yes, there's smoke, but just like the fire ceremonies that we do, the yagnas that we do, actually purify the atmosphere rather than pollute it, even though there's, yes, smoke coming out of the fire. That which is in the fire, which are the pure cow dung patties and the pure ghee and the pure samagri, actually purifies the environment. Now, I don't think dead bodies do that, but as far as I know, there isn't actually anything in the body that is toxic, that creates toxins in the air or the environment. So that's one piece of it. However, it's bad for the environment in a lot of other ways because the amount of wood that is required for a cremation is huge. Many, many, many people do not have the money. Sandalwood is very expensive. And so it's used in fewer and fewer places because people just don't have the money. Trees, of course, end up getting cut down. I mean, wood comes from trees. So on a purely environmental level, the number of trees that get cut down in order to be the wood is not such a good idea. For that, we've actually been working with wonderful technology that has now become much, much more widespread, but we're working to make it even more widespread, in which much, much less wood is used. It's a special type of cremation. Instead of just being right on the wood, it's actually on metal, but the metal is open and the wood is under it, so it's still a purely traditional cremation. It's not an electric cremation. But because of the way this contraption is built, it takes a lot less wood, it burns a lot faster, And so you don't end up with poor families kind of half burning bodies and then throwing the bodies into the river. The other thing that we're doing is working instead of putting ashes only in the river, to actually plant trees in memory of the loved one, and to put some of the ash in the trees as this symbol of your loved one coming back in the form of this tree. The issue with the pollution of the bodies themselves, again, as far as I know, is not actually a major pollutant. If it turns out it is, that would be a good thing to know, but I don't think it is. The trash being burned is a much bigger problem. That's toxic, that's synthetics, that's plastics. But the traditional, ancient, Vedic way that cremations are done, I don't actually think that it pollutes the environment, other than the trees that end up getting cut down. And that's where we're doing a lot of work to try to get people to plant trees in memory of the loved ones, and to use these other type of cremation contraptions that end up making it a lot faster. It burns a lot hotter. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, last.
Namaste. So we always try to be positive. We always say we should be positive. We should say positive things. But what about the subconscious negative thoughts we have? Like, what if this goes wrong? What if this happens? Then what should we do about that?
Great. So having thoughts, negative thoughts, anxiety thoughts, the example you gave are not just negative, they're not judgment-filled thoughts, they're anxiety-filled thoughts. Oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? So, several tools. Number one, if you find that anxiety about a particular thing keeps coming in your mind, address it. Is there actually something you can do about it? If you're worried that your house is going to burn down, are there fire safety measures that you can take to prevent your house from burning down? If you're worried about something happening to your health or your loved one's health, obviously we don't have total control over it, but there's a lot you can do to live a much healthier life. Can you help your loved one live a healthier life? So first, most simple thing is address it. A lot of these thoughts just want our attention. When you tell it, yeah, I hear you. Make a list of all the things you're going to do to assuage that concern. That may actually be enough. But if you discover that it's much more sort of pervasive anxiety, today it's this, tomorrow it's that, yesterday it was something else, or any other kind of just this rumination that we were talking about the other night, this is where our practice of meditation and mindfulness is so powerful, because when we meditate, say we're focusing on the breath, or say we're chanting a mantra, or say we've got open eyes and we're looking at the flowing Ganga or a divine image, well, the mind is going to wander. And then you just bring it back. And then it wanders, and then you bring it back. And then it wanders, and then you bring it back. And slowly, the amount of time you're able to stretch together in between mind wanderings gets longer and longer. And the amount of time it takes you to bring the mind back is shorter and shorter. And that becomes a great tool for life. It's the same thing. You're thinking positive thoughts. The mind goes, the earth could open up and swallow you. There could be a sinkhole under your feet. And you just bring it back. Just bring it back. Just bring it back. Then it says, oh my God, this building could catch fire. And you just bring it back. You bring it back. Oh my God, you could die tomorrow. You bring it back. Bring it back. And it's a tool that you learn and get quite good at during your meditation. Try to bring as much mindfulness to your life as possible. It's the same practice. Just bringing the awareness back to the moment. So, if I've got to drink water, 2 ways of drinking water. One way of drinking water is, here I am, I'm talking to you, and you and I are chit-chatting, and maybe we're talking about the weather, we're talking about, anything else at all, and I could be, okay, so I drank water, totally unaware. Because I was talking the whole time, right? Talking to you, talking kind of nonsense, not present at all with what was going on. Another way. Now, a lot of times in mindfulness retreats, they'll teach you to do things very, very slowly. I didn't, just in the interest of not making you watch me spend 5 minutes having a sip of water. But it's a great practice. Can you spend 5 minutes having a sip of water? Can you spend 5 minutes eating a grape? Just for the practice of it. Not every time you need to drink water, just for the practice. But then bring that mindfulness into whatever you do. Can you actually feel the muscle of your arm reach out? Can you feel your hands touch the glass and that the glass is kind of cool? Can you feel it come up to your mouth? Can you feel the wetness on your lips? Can you feel it go down? It's just very simple. As you walk, stop walking and texting. Right? I mean, you are just bound for a disaster. But B, you're missing the opportunity of turning walking into a meditation. So just be as mindful as you can. How many things in your day can you just bring mindfulness into? And it'll train your mind so that when you find it wandering off into this ruminations and anxiety and negativity, you'll already have that muscle in place to just bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Okay? Good. Yeah, wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings. And as I mentioned on the Ghat in the Arti, we are having tomorrow and 28th morning a very beautiful and special conference on living peace with people who have come from all over the world to focus especially on water, on the critical role that water plays in peace, how we can protect it, how we can preserve it, how we can save it and serve it. You are more than welcome to join us for part of it, for all of it. Anita Ji is here. I think Manisha Ji also is here. Can you just raise your hand? Great. And so if you're interested in it and you're not already part of it, you can find Anita Ji over here after the satsang, and she'll be happy to let you know timings and location so that you can know where to join and when to join. And you don't have to officially sign up or anything, don't worry. You can just come, and she'll give you all of the details. And looking forward to seeing you there, and looking forward to seeing you all here tomorrow. And so much love to you all.